In today's episode, the FCC chair is defending the decision to pull Jimmy Kimmel's show. Secondly, students of a high school staged a walkout after one of the faculty members celebrated Charlie Kirk's assassination. And finally, the president has designated Antifa as a terrorist organization. And so in all of these stories, we're going to show you what both sides are saying and then give you the bottom line.
Yeah, Congressman, I see you are wearing a hat. What does that hat say?
You're damn right I am, John. I was a guest on the Jimmy Kimmel show. He, every night, has a right to come into any house that wants to watch and entertain Americans, just as Greg Gutfeld on Fox has a right to be not funny and go on his network and entertain Americans. It's a part of who we are, John, and frankly, it should shake every American that the President of the United States is out there firing comedians who make fun of him. That is not who we are, and every American should care and stand up to this.
Listen, this entire debate right now is probably one of the easiest ones to talk about because all Democrats are doing is overly emotionally reacting to everything. They're not actually arguing their points based on what's legal. It's all about hypocrisy for them, really. And a great example that starts with how Jimmy Kimmel reacted to begin with. Not only was he upset at the announcement, but he refuses to apologize for his remarks, as you guys can see here on the screen. He thought the remarks of Charlie Kirk that he made were warranted. Now, I don't know what world he lives in, but I find that to be distasteful. Okay, fine. But listen, Eric Swalwell has gone a step further. Now he's threatening the FCC and anybody else who had a hand in pulling the show off the air by claiming that when Democrats win the midterms, they're going to pull these people into Congress and hold them accountable. Take a look.
So I want to make it clear, there's going to be a Democratic majority in just over a year. And to the FCC chairperson and anyone involved in these dirty deals, get a lawyer and save your records, because you're going to be in this room and you're going to be answering questions about the deals that you struck and who benefited and what the cost was to the American people because that happened.
Yeah, so the interesting part about what Mr. Eric Swalwell just said is that if the president uttered those same words, they would be saying the president is authoritarian, he's threatening our rights, you know? And again, there's just a part of this country that does not see America in the same way that we see it. It's almost like being in high school all over again. But let's stick to the facts. Roseanne was fired by ABC back in 2018 after one tweet. That was a joke. Gina Carano fired from The Mandalorian in 2021, which we're definitely familiar about that. And it goes on and on. Megyn Kelly, Dave Chappelle, Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, Parler, which is probably a big one. Apple, Google, Amazon colluded in 2021 to wipe the entire platform off the internet. Did Democrats cry about that then? No, they did not. So I think at the end of the day, Democrats should probably pump the brakes on how emotional they are and start focusing on things that will actually help them, because this isn't it.
Well, Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he had bad ratings more than anything else, and he said a horrible thing about a great gentleman known as Charlie Kirk. And Jimmy Kimmel is not a talented person. He had very bad ratings, and they should have fired him a long time ago. So, you can call that free speech or not. He was fired for lack of talent.
Now, to actually clarify exactly what the president is saying, because he's telling the truth, he was really let go because as far as ratings were concerned, they were continuing to decline year over year. He's in the same position Stephen Colbert was in, that they're losing these companies money. The amount of money it was taking to produce that show is insane. Think of it this way. The overhead to produce a Stephen Colbert show, the overhead to produce Jimmy Kimmel Live is usually the salaries that these TV show hosts would be getting. You guys following what I'm saying? It's way too much money, especially in today's digital world. And here's the numbers to support and also rebuke what Eric Swalwell said earlier about Gutfeld. Look at this. Go back to 2015. 2.1 million was the average of people watching Jimmy Kimmel. And at that time, Greg Gutfeld came in at 1.2. Where are we at today? Well, Kimmel in 2025 was only averaging 1.5, and Gutfeld is almost at 3. No, he is at 3 million, 3.1 million. You guys following what I'm saying here? his ratings were continuing to decline year over year. This is a smart business decision for them. I think this was just a great excuse to finally rip off the Band-Aid. Now, of course, the left is going to cry, nope, the government forced them to do it. I really don't buy into that.
No, look, again, broadcast TV is different. We're on a cable show right now. You don't have an FCC license. You don't have an obligation to serve the public interest. Podcasts don't either. Stand-up comedians, whether they're on lots of forms of communications, don't, and Kimmel is free to do that. But if you have a broadcast TV license, that means that you have something that very few people have. And you're excluding other people from having access to that valuable public resource. And it comes with an obligation to serve the public interest. And again, over the years, there's been a rule in place at the FCC that local TV stations get to preempt programming that they don't think meets the needs of their communities. But recently, these national programmers, ABC, Disney, Comcast, NBC, they've been exercising outsized control and power over those local TV stations, and there's been no pushback. And this is a very significant moment because local broadcasters are now pushing back on national programmers for the first time that I can think of in modern history. And that's one of the things we want at the FCC. We want to empower local broadcasters that have the public interest obligation to push back on national programmers so that people have more choice.
This is very important for me, okay? Let me just ask you this. How many times have you received spam calls, spam text messages, and you're sitting there wondering, how did they get my information? Well, they got it because your personal information is being sold on the dark web. And I'm talking about your name, your email address, your mailing address, even your social security number. My wife and I were plagued with spam calls. And this is why today's video is sponsored by Aura. Aura helped us clean up our data, get it removed, stop the spam calls. It's dangerous out there. And we know the federal government isn't going to protect us. So we have to protect ourselves. That's why you have to use Aura. And not only will they get you to see what information has been sold or leaked on the internet, but they'll help you remove it and offer 24/7 monitoring. Try Aura today for free for the first 14 days by going to aura.com/Devory or click the link in the description below. You have to protect your personal data because no one else will do it for you. Again, that is aura.com/Devory. All right, so what is the bottom line so far? The federal government did not force ABC to do the right thing. It was the local affiliates that forced ABC to do the right thing. When enough channels pull the show, then ABC nationally had to do it. That's the first thing. Secondly, and it's stupid that we have to say this out loud, there is no violation of Jimmy Kimmel's First Amendment right. He could say whatever he wants to say, but he's not immune to his employer pulling him off the network. That's just the bottom line to it. Now, let's go to our next story, because when you're talking about free speech and you're continuing to see people defame Charlie Kirk, I really hope they do sue these individuals because they are disgusting. And I am going to respond to them because I just feel I'm compelled to. Let's start with the first scumbag by the name of Keith Olbermann. Here's the video he just posted about Charlie Kirk. And yes, it has gotten 1 million views already. Take a look.
Now that we can say with some certainty that if Tyler Robinson indeed shot Charlie Kirk, he shot him for personal reasons because he saw Kirk as a direct threat to somebody he loved. That Robinson was not a stochastic proxy murderer from Antifa or the Groypers or the right-wingers who had so recently called Kirk a fraud, like Laura Loomer. It is then also clear that there is truly only one person whose words created, amplified, mainstreamed, and manufactured this nightmarish environment that has led to Charlie Kirk's death.
Yeah, we already know where that rhetoric is going. He's going to blame Donald Trump for everything. That's the lazy thing to do. That's what they all do. They always have to connect the president to everything instead of taking responsibility, which led to me posting this on X last night. Lord, please forgive this piece of you-know-what. Because he posted this, burn in hell Sinclair, because he's reacting to Jimmy Kimmel's show being pulled alongside Charlie Kirk. Now, some of you guys might be upset that I'm showing you this, but why do we show you this? Because you have to be aware of the people we're dealing with in this country. They are this sick and evil. And some people don't see them as that way. But maybe through this evidence in my show, you'll realize how deranged these people are. It's really frightening. Now, on a positive note, when people are defaming Charlie Kirk, not everybody is accepting it, including some students at high schools. It was reported today that high school students staged a walkout after multiple teachers celebrated the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Take a listen.
Students at Thurston High School walking out over an employee's comments over conservative activist Charlie Kirk's shooting last week. Thanks for joining us here for KVAL News at noon. I'm John Mayer.
And I'm Brianna Chavez. Now, that walkout started earlier in the day, right around the time school began.
And we got the chance to speak with some of those students who walked out to learn more about why they felt the need to do so. Take a listen.
Obviously, at Thurston, we have a history of shootings happening at our school, and murders had happened on that day. So we just don't want to stand for the murder that occurred on that day.
If you're going to be okay with murders, I mean, what else are you really okay with,
Now, the students say they plan on remaining outside until the end of the school day in hopes of bringing attention from not only the community, but the district itself. The post the students are protesting, which has been shared across social media platforms, shows the employee sharing a news article about Kirk's death with the comment, "Good." Now, we did reach out to the district, which says it is aware of the post and concern from parents who are saying, quote, "The views expressed in the post do not reflect the values of SPS. As a public school district, we're committed to providing a safe and respectful environment for all students, staff, and families. While we cannot comment on the individual personnel actions, know that we are taking this matter seriously."
A couple of things you guys should know. Springfield, Oregon. I think that sums it up right there, right? And secondly, this is a photo of the teacher. And, again, it takes a certain type of person to celebrate and approve of an assassination of another American citizen. And that's the interesting thing here. Before we are Democrat, Republican, progressive, liberal, conservative, we are American citizens. Before we're even American citizens, we're God's children. And if we can lean more in that direction, I think we can have a better country and tone down this divisive political environment. Now, speaking of that, because of what's going on with pulling of the Jimmy Kimmel show, Stephen Colbert, they're blaming Trump for that as well. And all these people being fired for saying things like this, MSDNC this morning is trying to concoct this huge conspiracy about what the president is truly up to here. And it also relates to Antifa. Take a listen.
We're seeing it as a piece of a larger puzzle, John. Like just this week, the president also sued the New York Times for $15 billion, naming some reporters, 4 of them individually. And then we have there's just the vice president, Stephen Miller, others have floated this idea that the shooter, Charlie Kirk's assassin, was somehow connected to these left-wing groups. And they're going to crack. There's no evidence of that. Let's be clear. Right. They crack down on that next. And then last night, we have the president saying he's going to label Antifa a terrorist group. Right. Antifa is not really a group. It's sort of a philosophy in many ways. But that seems to be the umbrella by which they'll try to do this, even though you can't actually do that for someone in the United States.
All right. Number one, they say there's no evidence that connects Tyler Robinson to any far left groups. Obviously, I disagree with that. I think there are definitely enough evidence to suggest a strong possibility that is a reality. Somehow he was radicalized. He didn't just wake up and all of a sudden believe in what he believed in. So there's that. And secondly, this is actually a segue into our next story, which is about the president late last night designating Antifa as a terrorist organization. Take a look.
The White House moving forward with a broader crackdown, I should say, on left-wing groups stoking political violence in the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination.
Our senior correspondent Eric Shawn is in New York City. He's reporting for us now. What does this new designation mean exactly, Eric?
Well, hello, John and Sandra. Well, it actually means that President Trump has designated Antifa as a major terrorist organization, basically saying it's as dangerous as Al-Qaeda, Islamic Jihad, and Hamas. You may recall back during the 2016 presidential election, that's when we first heard of Antifa during those protests that erupted back then. The group blamed for violent demonstrations that targeted Trump policies, right-wing extremists, as well as neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and alt-right groups. President Trump posting this, quote, I am designating Antifa, a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster, as a major terrorist organization. I will also be strongly recommending that those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated.
Okay, so we know where the president is going with this, and there's so much more to Antifa that we're going to get to here. But let's at least understand exactly how the left is already responding to this announcement from the president. Now, Brian here on X, which is a loud critic of President Trump and MAGA, of course, he says, I am Antifa, meaning I am against fascism. All Americans should be. Antifa is not an organization. That is the main talking point you're going to hear. Antifa is not an organization. It's an idea, a philosophy. Okay. Domestic groups also cannot be formally designated as terrorist organizations under U.S. law. Trump did not have legal authority to unilaterally designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. No federal statute allows for a president to make such a designation domestically. Now, it doesn't really matter if he signed the executive order or not. What matters is the government's intention to crack down on the crimes that Antifa has clearly not only funded, encouraged, and incited. That's what we're talking about here. Let's go all the way back to Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, all of that stuff. At every single major violent riot in this country since President Trump has been on the scene, you know who's been involved? Antifa. Here's a little bit more information about them.
In 2020, Antifa put Portland, Oregon under siege, constantly with street protests that sparked violence and destruction. Antifa members have protested the murder of George Floyd and other causes. They stood against the neo-Nazi march at the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, where you may remember a liberal protester was run over and killed. Critics, though, say there is no central Antifa organization office or headquarters. It doesn't have a leader or even a list of members to punish. Experts say that makes enforcing a terrorist designation difficult. The American Civil Liberties Union says, though, that the president also does not have the legal authority to make the designation, telling Fox News, quote, President Trump seems hell-bent on targeting real or perceived political opponents based on their constitutionally protected beliefs and speech. And we should all be very clear that he is jeopardizing everyone's First Amendment rights. The most recent Antifa clash occurred this past spring in Seattle, Washington. There was a protest by a conservative Christian group in a city park. The Antifa forces and the folks who were at that rally also had some clashes then. That resulted in police arresting 23 people.
This is the type of decision and announcement that the president makes that triggers Democrats to make crucial mistakes politically. He is going to put them in a position where they are literally defending violence, domestic terrorism in some cases, you could argue. That's what Democrats are going to start to do. They're going to defend it because they don't realize the average American could care less if Antifa doesn't have articles of incorporation and they don't have a board of directors. People are not stupid. They know Antifa exists. They know there are radical groups out there that are definitely on the right and radical groups that are definitely on the left. And Antifa is one of them. There is no lying to the American people about that. But people in Congress that are Democrats do believe you're that stupid. Take a listen.
I hope he can first define what Antifa is, because there is no Antifa organization. So maybe that's good for social media, but it really is non-existent. But the point is that he's using the Charlie Kirk murder as a pretext to go after people that he disagrees with. He, on the very night of Kirk's murder, you will remember, accused the left of committing the murder when the murderer had not even been caught or identified. This is all a pretext, and it is a shame, I think, as Ram said, that Charlie Kirk actually stood for free speech, and instead they're using his memory to attack free speech.
The unfortunate part about this entire situation is that he decided to use Charlie Kirk to make his point that, conservatives and the president is using his assassination to cancel people and their free speech. That's so far from the truth. And the fact of the matter is Charlie Kirk not only believed Antifa was real, but also experienced them multiple times when he would visit universities, including people a part of Turning Point USA. And the fascinating part is the last post from Charlie Kirk on Antifa was this. Last night at the University of Washington, Antifa protesters occupied the brand new engineering building to protest Israel. They lit dumpster fires, created blockades, and chanted death to the police. Police made about 30 arrests. These violent temper tantrums from the left are a disgrace and should not be tolerated by any institution getting public money. But hey, Antifa's not a real thing. That's what they want us to believe.
You said millions and millions of dollars going towards some of these groups for agitation the other day.
They're agitators.
Who are they?
Well,
and where's the money coming from? Is it foreign entities?
Yeah, you're going to find out, and we're going to find out in great detail.
This is exactly what the federal government should do, particularly FBI. They should be investigating these groups because these groups are violent. I mean, that's as clear as day. There's nothing wrong with them doing that. In fact, they should have been doing it already. And they should have measures in place to crack down on these groups when they cross the line. Now, what's interesting for the people who still don't believe Antifa is a real thing, pay attention to this post from Mostly Peaceful Latinas. Update: Seattle Antifa member Craig called my building's management office this morning to slander me as a fascist and terrorist while posting this about Erica Kirk and how she needs to be assassinated next. And they tagged the FBI and FBI Seattle into this. And here's a copy of the post. I'm not even going to read it to you because it's just clearly disgusting. Here's the photo of the individual and his post calling MAGA supporters Nazis, etc. These people are as radical as you are going to get. There's no question about that.
Well, they are organized networks. You can think of it like that. And there are certain organized groups. Rose City Antifa, for example, in my case, that was the official group in Portland that was involved in violent criminality against me and others. I think people need to also manage certain expectations about the announcement of the designation. So it's mostly, as a statement, is symbolic in the sense that in the U.S. legal framework, there's no actual category where a group that's declared a domestic terrorist group can then therefore be banned and membership of it banned. That's not allowed in the U.S. because of the First Amendment. However, I think with the very strong words that were used in the True Social announcement, it signals, in addition to what he said last week to a journalist, that he is directing his Department of Justice to prioritize breaking apart some of these networks. I think that has been a failure at the federal level during the first administration in 2020, for example. The then U.S. Attorney General, as far as I know, really did no effort to pursue any conspiracy charges at the federal level or other charges that could have really broken up some of these networks. And there's lots of tools legally that can be done currently. We don't need new legislation.
Now, this individual was a victim of Antifa violence, and he is pointing out the same thing that we've been saying here. They don't need articles of incorporation to be looked at as an organization or, at a minimum, a network of people who are disrupting this country in a violent way. That's what they have been doing. And now the FBI and the DOJ have people who are in charge who will actually do something about it. That's the difference here. So yes, the president attempted to do this in his first administration, but don't forget who was in his cabinet. Don't forget who was the head of the FBI. They were more concerned with setting him up to fail than actually keeping America safe. Now, part of that past administration is the vice president himself, who he always makes an appearance during times where no one wants to hear from him and no one wants to see him. But he had to speak on Charlie Kirk's assassination. And unfortunately, he said something that was disturbing. Listen to this.
You know, the Bible says we mourn with those who mourn and grieve with those who grieve. And I just have to tell you, I knew Charlie Kirk. He was a good and godly man, devoted husband, father, important voice in America. I'm heartsick about what happened to him, and I truly do pray for his family, commend law enforcement in the community, and but you understand the anger in this moment. It's understandable, but I think we got to be careful about putting America on trial whenever we see evil overtake the hearts of any individual. And in this case, absent additional facts, there was one person responsible for Charlie Kirk's assassination.
But what if that evil originates from far left radical groups like Antifa? So just let them off the hook then, based on your logic. And what you're saying is let's just treat the symptom, because Tyler Robinson is a symptom. He's not the root cause here, okay? He's a side effect. And the cause are these extreme radical groups on both sides of the political section, by the way. Antifa here is the main culprit based on the evidence we've seen so far. Yeah, they need to be dealt with swiftly. And there's no question Tyler Robinson will face consequences at the highest level. I'm not really concerned about that. I'm concerned about where he got those ideas from. Now, that doesn't mean we need to censor those ideas. No, what we need to do is start holding people accountable who take those ideas and transform it into violence. That's what the government needs to do. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene said this, and this is the counterpoint to what Vice President Pence was saying. Take a look.
Jimmy Kimmel was fired because he lied on ABC about the identity of the man that Tyler Robinson that murdered, assassinated, martyred Charlie Kirk. He lied and said he was MAGA. Tyler Robinson was not MAGA, not one bit. He was part of Antifa. He was in a relationship. He was in a relationship with someone who identified as furry and trans, and this is an absurd lie, and so I moved to table the motion to subpoena.
And now I want to hear from you guys in the comments section to these stories. Let's just start with the big one of what happened with Jimmy Kimmel last night as his show got pulled off the air, and this crying, this meltdown from Democrats and really their inability to realize that they're a bunch of hypocrites. I mean, isn't it fascinating? And by the way, do you believe the government actually forced ABC to remove his show, or do you believe it was the local affiliates that did it? Let me know your answers in the comments section below to that. And then what about what we're continuing to see as people defame Charlie Kirk? I really hope they get sued, and how even students had staged a walkout at a high school due to the behavior of one of the teachers. Let me know how you guys feel about that. And then this whole Antifa situation. Let me just ask you this. Do you believe Antifa is a real thing? Do you believe they are or have committed domestic terrorism in our country? Let me know if you guys agree with that. Just put your answers and everything else in the comments section below. Okay, in our next video, we're talking about brother lover Omar, the representative, who was supposed to be censured yesterday by Congress after she posted a disgusting video regarding Charlie Kirk and his assassination. And if you guys missed out on that story and more updates from yesterday, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.